And Cynthia, here's a question for you too. And I'm not going to ask you to dive into what is a very hot topic for Raiders fans, which is of course Derek Carr, the player.
Oh, that's a hot topic.
Oh,
you
haven't heard
anywhere.
Apparently, some think that no one should talk.
Wait, that's a question. Maybe
yeah, nobody should talk about it, right? But Cynthia, here's the thing: when you're looking at a player, whether it's Derek Carr or anybody else, and some people will use statistics to say a player is really, really good or a player is not so good. When you start to look at things like Mike Mayock mentioned in his press conference about his quarterback completion percentage and all this, for a fan, just a fan on the other end of the microphone who's listening to us or watching us, when they look at those statistics, what is the best thing for them to do in evaluating, hey, I want to know how I should feel about a player on my team? Is it the wins and losses only? Is it, if somebody has a 70% completion rate but doesn't score a lot of touchdowns, like what do people do to kind of make sense of it all from a fan perspective?
So for me, it's all about what are you trying to do and how are you executing it? If just kind of, 100,000 foot level, right? Like if the coach understands and wants to make a playbook for their quarterback, then they'll figure it out. Case in point, Lamar Jackson. He wouldn't fit on just every team. They have the right personnel, they have the right playbook, and then they have the right quarterback for what they're trying to do, right? So that's like that's how it works well together. The problem is when you start, you can tell a story with statistics that makes someone look amazing or makes someone look terrible, right? Like the same person, it's all about the situation. If your coach wants to create a playbook for your quarterback, then that's the right quarterback for this season, right? Mm-hmm. If your coach doesn't, then it's not. It's not that complicated in the sense of, look, evaluating Derek Carr's really hard because you don't know what was asked of him. We're outsiders. We don't know what John Gruden was asked him to do. If he doesn't, if that's not going to work for them, then they should move on. It's about the availability of substitutes. There's a really rich free agency class of quarterbacks in this one, and then there's a couple of quarterbacks in the draft that could make sense to them. So to me, it's about executing the strategy that fits your personnel. Do you have the right O-line? Do you have the right wide receivers? Do you have the right running backs, right? So tight ends, things like that. You can't just, it's really hard to consider in a vacuum. So really, sure, a nice high completion percentage sounds good, but if you're throwing a lot of short passes, that's going to be really high. It could be artificially high, sure. Right? If you're throwing a bunch of deep passes, those are lower probability passes of being completed. So it's going to be lower. So it's all about, like, what are you trying to do, and do you have the right pieces to execute your strategy?
That's always the question, getting all the pieces of the puzzle to fit together, right?